Every strong family has the same five habits, but most parents only do one or two, and then they wonder why connection feels so hard. So today, we're going to give you the five keys to transform how your family communicates, builds trust, and grows together. Those five keys are emotional intelligence, open conversations, building trust, setting expectations, and conflict management. Now, before we unpack these, please subscribe to the channel and be sure to download the blueprint in the comment section below so you can have a roadmap on how to improve the household culture that will allow you to have legacy relationships. So the first key that we're going to share with you today is social and emotional intelligence. Now, the definition of social and emotional intelligence is our ability to be aware of our emotions and the emotions of others in the moment, and then to use that information to manage our actions and to manage our relationships. So, Avery, I'm going to do it to you. I know you're going to cringe, but I got to show the picture of the car.
Man, are you ever going to let me live this down?
I am. After this course, I'm going to let you live it down to the next time.
Okay, sure. That's what I thought.
So that used to be my car. Now, the reason that I'm sharing that with all of you is because things happen in life that we don't expect to happen. And the way in which we respond to those things versus reacting to them is connected to our social and emotional intelligence. Now, that was a difficult moment for a number of reasons. One, I love that car. I mean, I really, really did. Avery and my other son, Justin, would talk about me, saying you're driving an old man car, but I loved it. But number two, I was a few car payments away from having it paid off. So it was difficult for that reason, but it was also difficult because I knew Avery was having a very, very hard time with what had happened. He had borrowed the car that day, and about 5 minutes from our house, he got into the accident. Nobody was hurt, fortunately. That's why we have insurance. But our social and emotional intelligence really is the thing that we need to tap into when it comes to our emotions and the emotions of other people.
Yeah, Pops, I really am glad that you had been on a journey of social and emotional intelligence up to that point, because I really did feel bad. And I'm glad that you took that into account before you just popped off on me. But one of the reasons why it's so important for adults to work on their emotional intelligence is so that they can help their children with their social and emotional learning. Now, one of the competencies of social and emotional intelligence is resilience. And safe to say, our family has had to tap into resilience over the years. And as somebody that lives with attention deficit disorder, I've got to tap into my resilience every single day. For context, back when I was in high school, I was diagnosed with ADD. But admittedly, I didn't think too much of this diagnosis because I was still getting decent grades. I wasn't a disruptive kid, so I just kind of brushed that under the rug. Now, fast forward to my junior year of college, and for the first time in my life, I'm starting to feel all the negative side effects of ADD compiling at once. I was losing focus easily. I had no concentration. My time management was off. I was feeling more impulsive, and as a result, my grades were suffering. I was running late all the time. I was becoming a poor friend. And so at that moment, I realized I had two options. I could continue to avoid addressing this issue, or I could lean into it and I could seek help. And that's what I did. I had to tap into my resilience. So I met with doctors and medical professionals to understand what was happening inside of me. I sat through months worth of classes that were centered around living with ADD. I embraced mindfulness, yoga, meditation, anything that could help me cope. because I made up my mind at that point in time that I was going to be so much more than that diagnosis. And since that time in my life, I've gone on to study abroad in Sydney, Australia. I moved across the country to do an internship and live in Washington, D.C. I graduated from college, and at the age of 22, I started this business with my dad. The reason I'm telling you this is, if you are somebody that is going through a struggle, similarly to the way I was, don't hesitate to ask for help. And furthermore, if you know somebody that is going through a struggle, don't hesitate to reach out and give them a helping hand. You see, true resilience isn't just about bouncing back. True resilience is about bouncing forward beyond the point where we just were. I'm a big proponent of knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know. And it was an ego check for me, but at that point in my life, I had to realize that I didn't know how to make it through that tough time. But I'm so glad that I tapped into my resilience back then.
You know, Avery, that's a good segue, because knowing what you know and knowing what you don't know is a function of our self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is merely an understanding of your internal state. It's the knowledge of your personality and your character, your strengths as well as your weaknesses. We'll call them opportunity areas for the purposes today. The emotional tendencies that we have and the habits that we form. That's part of our self-awareness, and it makes it more clear to understand those things. Why we believe what we believe and why we value what we value becomes more clear when we're self-aware. You can think of it as an internal mechanism into what makes you tick. Now think about this. How can we be aware of other people, particularly the people that are most important to us, if we're not aware of ourselves? As a parent, my self-awareness actually led me to understand the importance of being engaged in my children's education. Most school districts, if not all school districts, have wonderful family engagement programs. They want us as parents to be involved in our children's education. They want to collaborate and make partners of their parents. Now, even if your educational experience when you were growing up was not good, it doesn't mean that it has to be the same way for your child. Studies actually show that students whose families are engaged in their education do better academically, and they tend to advance far more in their studies. They bring a better attitude and perspective towards learning, and they attend school far more than students who don't have that family support. So the next time that you get an invitation to a school event, or a teacher reaches out to you because they need your assistance or your help, parents, we got to step up our games and be there for our kids. It'll benefit them, it'll benefit the educators that have their best interest in mind, and it will benefit you. So, how do we go on a journey of developing our self-awareness? Well, first and foremost, we have to be honest. Now, I'm in my mid-50s, and I think I know myself pretty well, but the reality of it is that I have blind spots. Like all of you viewing this video, we have blind spots. Congratulations, welcome to the human race. But here's the thing, and here's the question that I want to ask of you. When you look in the mirror, who is it that you see? What are the attributes that you possess? Do you know? Moreover, if someone else is looking in the mirror with you, would they see the same person that you describe? So the question that we have to ask ourselves is, who are you? So we're going to do an exercise that we do in our workshops and our keynote presentations. Then we're going to give you the time to do it with a friend or a partner. So Avery, set your clock for 60 seconds.
All right.
and then I'm going to ask you the question.
Okay.
All right, we ready?
Ready?
Okay, very good. Avery, who are you?
I am an inspirational speaker.
Okay, but who are you?
I am a brother and a son.
Nice. Who are you, Avery?
I'm a travel enthusiast.
Nice, nice. Who are you?
I'm a sports lover.
I like sports too, but who are you?
I'm a funny guy.
Are you? You think so?
I'm pretty funny.
Okay, all right. But who are you, Avery?
I am compassionate.
I like that. Who are you, Avery?
I'm a college graduate.
Nice.
That's right.
But who are you?
I'm an author.
Nice. Good accomplishment. Who are you?
I love to hike.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. Who are you?
I am running out of answers. That's who I am. But
Okay.
I am somebody who is very empathetic.
Nice. I bet you were taught that.
From
All right.
somebody.
All right. Well, who are you?
I am out of time.
Very good. Very good.
Awesome. So now it's your turn. Go ahead and partner up with somebody near you, or you can also do this exercise with yourself. Each person has the chance to answer for 60 seconds. All right? So go ahead and pause this video and we'll see you when you come back. So how was that? Was it difficult? Was it easy? Look, this exercise, Who Are You, is so beneficial because it forces us to explore ourselves. It requires a little bit of curiosity, but eventually you really start to figure out, who the heck am I? Now, when you do this exercise, and we recommend that you do it pretty consistently, we want you to think about how you're answering the question. Do you answer it from a personal standpoint or a professional standpoint? Realize that may be the lens you see yourself from first. How about this? Do you like the person that you describe? And if not, what are you prepared to do about that? Are you the parent or the guardian that you want to be? Understand that you have the choice to change that. Look, folks, this is how true self-discovery begins. If you want to improve your situation, if you want to improve the relationships in your life, if you want to get the results that you want, it starts with developing your self-awareness. Here are a few reflective questions to help you on your journey.
So as we end this section on social and emotional intelligence, we want to leave you with some downloadable resources. The first one is a Who Are You worksheet, and the second one is an ebook that we wrote on developing your self-awareness. Now, the second key that we're going to share with you today is open conversations. And open conversations are just things that we don't have enough of. When my wife found out that she was pregnant with Avery, one of the things we discussed was what kind of culture did we want to create in our household now that we were going to have children. When we hear the word culture, we often associate it with workplace culture. How do we have employees be more engaged? What can we do to make employees more productive? Is it an environment where people can not just survive, but can they thrive? Well, why wouldn't we want that in our homes? You see, we wanted our children to be able to come and talk to us about anything and everything. It didn't mean that they had to, but it did mean that they could if they wanted to. We wanted them to be able to express themselves and share their feelings and their thoughts. We wanted them to be comfortable engaging in conversations from a very young age, because we knew that was going to be important to their development as they grew and became older. We also wanted to challenge their thinking, and we wanted them to be able to challenge and ask questions about what they heard and what they saw. And we wanted to do all of this without them feeling judged when they came to talk to us. So Avery, if you could, share a little bit with everyone about how growing up in an environment where open conversations were present.
Absolutely. I mean, it's crucial. Young people today need an environment where they feel like they can be listened to, and they need an environment where they feel they can express themselves. And this was so beneficial for me when I was growing up. See, what you all have to understand is I was not an outgoing kid. And I know that seems pretty ironic considering that I'm talking to you today. But as my dad likes to say, when I was growing up, I was like a cat. Now, my brother, he was a dog. He was barking. Anything that came to his mind, he wanted to say. For me, I was the one that was a little bit more observant, a little bit more shy, and I needed some time to warm up. Now, it took a lot of encouraging from my parents to express myself, and eventually this led to me gaining some confidence, and I found my voice. Now, my dad used to give my brother Justin and I these life lessons or these teachings consistently while we were growing up. And over time, these became known as Brian Bakerisms in our home. Now, the Brian Bakerism that works really well for open conversations is closed mouths don't get fed. I'm gonna repeat that. Closed mouths don't get fed. Now, my dad used to tell me this from the time that I was 6, 7, 8 years old. And admittedly, I didn't really know what he was talking about back then. But as I got older, I realized how true that statement is. When I got into the classroom and I knew that I was struggling with a course or I was struggling with the content, I had to open up my mouth and either let my teacher know or go talk to some of my classmates and ask them, hey, do you understand this? I might need some help. As I got into the workplace, I mentioned that I interned in Washington, D.C., and I worked for a firm that was very fast-paced. Nobody was holding your hands, and so if I needed help on a project, I needed to open up my mouth and let my manager know, let my boss know, hey, can I get an extension? Can you help me on this? So again, closed mouths don't get fed. It is one of the greatest Brian Bakerisms that you ever gave me, Pops.
Well, you know, the fact of the matter is closed mouths don't get fed. But we also can't have open conversations if we're not good listeners. Now, I have to admit and I have to confess, I have not always been a good listener. My wife, I saw that.
You can say that again.
My wife is a fantastic listener. She always has been. I don't know, maybe it's a guy thing. I don't know. But I do know this. If we're going to invite people in our household to come and talk to us about anything and everything, we cannot be thinking about what we're going to say before they finish their thoughts. We can't sit up there and think about how you're going to answer when you don't even know if there's a question that's going to be asked. As a matter of fact, the encouragement that we give to you today is to go into conversations and leave your agenda behind. You know, when I was small, when my grandmother would fuss at me, I would just say to her, all right, Grandma, I hear you. And my grandmother would respond, that's the problem. You hear me, but you're not listening. You see, hearing is very passive. Listening is very active. And we can't invite people to have open conversations with us if we're not going to work on truly, actively listening to them. The best thing that you can do to build bridges of understanding and close gaps in terms of your communication in your house is become a better listener. And it's a journey that I'm still on. I am a work in progress.
Yeah, it was extremely helpful for me when I was growing up to feel like I had a sounding board at home in my parents. And now, more than ever, it's important that young people have somebody that they can go to, and they need to know that they're being listened to because of everything that they are facing. I mean, we're talking about being fearful of going to school because of another mass shooting incident. We're talking about depression and anxiety from social media or social pressures that have young kids questioning their value or questioning their worth. I remember getting to the middle school years, and for the first time, I started to care a little bit more about what other kids thought as opposed to my baby boomer parents. Now, I'm reading about instances where kids as young as the 3rd and 4th grade are harming themselves because of social bullying or social anxieties. I mean, it's a lot to process. So as the adults in the relationship, it's more important now to be in tune with how your youngsters are handling, coping, processing all of this new information. One example of having open conversations is simply to ask your child about the social media app that they're using or ask them about the video game that they're playing. You may not think it, but they may be very excited to show you and tell you everything that's going on. And it's never too late to start having open conversations. But what my dad and I would both agree on is it's never too early to be in tune with your child in this ever-changing world. One of the scariest things that's happening right now is kids can absorb so much negativity, whether it's on social media platforms or on the internet. And they might not be telling you everything that they're seeing. Now, I can speak to this from personal experience because I was that type of kid. I didn't necessarily want to go to my parents first, but it was so helpful to know that if I ever wanted to and if I ever needed them, they were there for me.
Well, the last thing that I want to say as we close out open conversations is that we all need to learn how to agree to disagree. And open conversations is a great opportunity to do that. I think the world could use a little bit more of that at this time, and I'm so grateful as a parent to have raised kids that understand how to do that. Here are some developmental tips to help you have open conversations. Now, the third key that we're going to share with you today is building trust. Now, trust is foundational in every successful relationship. And so Avery and I have created these things that we call trust makers and trust breakers. So we're going to share that with you right now. You ready?
Yep, let's
All
get
right,
it.
Let's go ahead and do this, all right? So the first trust maker is sharing the rationale or the why behind the action that you take or what you say.
Yeah, I've got a really good story that can illustrate this trust maker. When I was 16 years old, I told my parents that I wanted to get a job. I never worked before, so my dad walked me through the steps on how to do so. Now, on the first day of job hunting, I come into the kitchen ready to go. I got a polo shirt on and my nice jeans. Now, I know everybody in here's got a pair of nice jeans, so as you can imagine, I thought I looked fresh. But I got into the kitchen and my dad just laughed and he said,
Yo, I see you got your nice jeans on. I need you to go into your room and put on some nice slacks. And then this polo is nice, but you need to go and put on a dress shirt and make sure you iron it, and then we'll bounce.
all right. So I head back to my room, go to change, and I'm in the closet and I'm picking out shirts, trying to match them with my slacks. Change, go back to the kitchen. I think I'm ready to go.
You look good, man. But you know what really topped this off? Go get a tie and go get a blazer, and then I think you'll be ready to go get a job. Then we'll roll out.
So I head back to change yet again, and this time I'm a little irritated because I feel like a 16-year-old that's going on 26. But I change, and we head out, and we go to the first place that any 16-year-old thinks that they could find a job, the mall. So we pull into the mall parking lot, park the car, get out the car, and the first people we see is one of my best friends and his dad. And I'm mortified because I think they're gonna roast me for how I'm dressed right now. But then my friend's dad looks at me and he shouts, "Ooh, boy, you look sharp." And I kind of puff up my chest, straighten out my tie. I'm like, you know what, I do look sharp. He asked me where I was going. I said, "Sir, I'm going to look for a job." He said, "Son, there's grown folk that come to my office that don't look as good as you, that are looking for work." Long story short, I didn't get a job that day, but I did get one the next day. And I'm very glad that I trusted you.
You know, I love that story because my wife and I had to get Avery to understand he was going to the mall to try to get employment, not to flirt. And so the bottom line is it was successful. He got the job. It was the beginning of him getting out of my pocket. So I'm good with that. The second trust maker that we want to share with you today is showing appreciation. You know, it's so important that we show appreciation to the people who are important to us. How often does someone do something for you and you fail to just let them know how meaningful it is? So showing appreciation is an excellent way to build trust. The third trust maker that we want to share with you is encouragement. How important is it that we encourage those in our lives, particularly in difficult and challenging times? And so continue to give encouragement to people. It's so important to them. Even if you don't know how important it is to them, make sure you continue to encourage them. That is a wonderful trust maker. And then the last trust maker we want to share with you today is asking people for their opinion. You know, it's funny, Avery and I are sitting up here in front of you today, and he's a 26-year-old young man, and I ask him his opinion all of the time because I value it. And we have to be able to ask the opinions of the people that are in our lives because we don't always have the answer. We think we may have the answer, but sometimes we can be swayed or our opinions can be changed when we ask others for theirs. So that's the fourth trust maker. Avery, share some trust breakers with everybody.
Yeah, Pops, those were some excellent ways to build trust. Here are a few trust breakers that we want to avoid in our relationships. Number one, failing to deliver on your commitments. How annoying is it when someone that you're counting on says that they can do something for you and then it turns out that they couldn't even get that done for you? I mean, that is one of the biggest ways that we can break down trust. Number two, blaming others for your mistakes. I love using a kindergarten classroom setting for this trust breaker. If the teacher is up at the front of the class and they turn around and tell the kids to be quiet, but then there's one kid that's like, no, it wasn't me, it was them, they were talking. That's one of the biggest ways that we can begin to break down trust. A third trust breaker is withholding information. Now, I needed to understand the importance of this trust breaker with the help of another Brian Bakerism. My dad used to tell me when I was growing up, he used to say, "I will always trust you, but I need to know that you were always telling me the truth." Now, for a young kid, a teenager that may think, a little lie never hurt nobody, this Brian Bakerism really drove home the point that withholding information was not the way to build trust moving forward. The last trust breaker is saying one thing, yet doing another.
Yeah, you know all about that.
Oh man, what you mean by that?
So when Avery got his driver's license, one of the first things that he wanted to do was drive to a Drake concert that was happening at an arena in Sacramento. So he was a pretty trustworthy kid up until that point, and I was cool with that. So I gave him the keys to the car and $20 for parking. And I simply just said, drive for everybody else, be careful, be home by 1 o'clock. So he leaves at 12:15, My phone rings. I see it's Avery, so I pick it up and I just say, yo, what's up, man?
Hey, Pops, can you pick us up from the concert?
Well, what's going on, man? What's wrong with the car?
Yeah, I can't find the car.
Okay, man, well, I've lost cars in big arena parking lots too. Quit being lazy, just walk around and find it.
Yeah, so about that, I didn't actually park in the arena parking lot. I parked, across the street where those restaurants are.
Dude, did you get my car towed? I mean, there are no tow signs all over those strip malls.
I know, and I've been looking for the signs, and I don't see. Oh. Saying one thing, yet doing another. And that $20 that I tried to pocket by not parking in the arena parking lot turned in $300 that I had to pay my dad back to get his car out the pound. Remember that job that I just got?
Man, you just don't have good luck with cars.
I need to get rid of it.
Something. So we want to share with you a study from an organization called Visit Anaheim in Orange County, California. A few years back, they did a study on the amount of quality time that families spend together. And what they found was during the week, families spend less than 40 minutes together in terms of quality time. Now, on the weekends, that went up quite a bit because obviously there's family activities going on the weekends. But during the week, oftentimes we're like ships passing through the night. But less than 40 minutes, man, that's less than a Law and Order episode.
Hey, man, that's not long at all.
That's not long at all. So we want to figure out how we could spend more quality time with our families because that is the thing that helps to build trust. So let's give them some ideas on some of the things that we did in our household.
For sure.
All right. So first thing that we want to encourage you to do is make a meal together and then sit down and eat. We try to do this at least 4 or 5 times during the week. We weren't always successful at it, but it was a goal for us. There was nothing like the 4 of us being in the kitchen, prepping meals, cooking them, sitting down to eat, and then having the kids clean all the dishes afterwards. That worked in our household. You remember those days?
Oh, I do.
Yeah.
I was not a fan of cleaning, but that was my job.
But we want to encourage you to eat a meal together and prepare it together. It's very rewarding and it's very enjoyable. What's the second way, Avery, we can spend quality time
Another
together?
way that we can begin to spend quality time together, game nights. Now, in our family, the game of choice was Monopoly.
Yes.
And my record against my dad is probably like 0-99 all time.
He's truly scarred from this, believe me.
But believe it or not, this was an excellent way for the entire family to get together and spend some time with each other. And there was a lot of learning in the process.
And a lot of tears. A lot of tears. Another way to get together with your family and spend some quality time is simply to just exercise together. It's just taking a walk together, riding your bikes together, gives everyone an opportunity to unwind, talk about their day, but the point is you're together and you're having a good time just enjoying each other's company. So those are a few ways that you could spend some quality time together. The thing about trust, and we just really have to emphasize this to you, it takes a long time to build it, but it only takes a moment to destroy it. So make sure you're putting in the work to build up that trust in your family.
Here are some developmental tips to help you build trust. Setting expectations. I will say that this key has had the most profound impact on me because it did not matter what I was doing when I was growing up. There was almost always expectations. Let me tell you what I mean by that. If I wanted to go hang out with some friends, it was never as simple as, hey, I'm gonna go be with so-and-so, peace. Nah. The follow-up questions from my parents would be, where are you going? Who are you gonna be with? Whose house you gonna be at? Do I know their parents? I'm gonna need their address. What's their parents' number? Am I picking you up in the morning? I mean, there was so many questions. So many questions that at times, I told my friends, yo, I can't hang out, before I even knew that I couldn't hang out. When it came to school, same thing. I remember one time in high school, I got a B+ on the test, and I was hyped because I studied my butt off for this test. And I couldn't wait to go home and show my dad, and I'm showing him the test, and I'm over his shoulder like, yeah. And he looked at it, and right after he congratulated me for getting a good grade, because he always made sure to express appreciation, he said, so you couldn't get an A-? Man, you must have been an honor roll student the way you were pushing me back in the day. Now, before I continue to talk about why these expectations were so beneficial for me in the long run, right, I do want to throw it over to you and ask, were the expectations for you when you were growing up the same, or what was your relationship like with your parents?
Well, I think in order to address that, I want to tell everybody a little bit about my father. You see, when Avery was about 3 years old, my father, for the first time, told me that he did not like his father. He thought that he loved him, but he didn't like him. And the reason for that was my grandfather was verbally and physically abusive to my dad and his 2 younger siblings. Now, my father didn't need that when he was a child, and so he explained to me that he used the abuse that he got from his father as motivation. And he said to himself that if he were to ever have children, that he would not treat his children like his father treated him. I want to just pause for a moment here and encourage all of you who are watching this to understand generational trauma is a real thing, and most families have it. As a matter of fact, when we speak live and we do workshops, we often ask the question, raise your hand if you've never experienced generational trauma in your family, and inevitably, no hands get raised. My father gravitated to education, and he became a teacher, a principal, and an educational researcher for over 40 years. And so when I was a freshman in high school, my father taught me a lot about setting expectations. Here's the story. On my first report card, I got not 1, not 2, not 3. I got 4 D's on my report card my freshman year in high school. I saw my life flash before my eyes when I got that report card. So the day that we received grades, my father happened to be on a business trip, and he was coming home that night. I took the report card home and I shared it with my mother. Now, what you have to understand is that my mother was also a teacher. She looked at this report card and she just shook her head and just said, "You're going with me to get your father tonight at the airport." So the next 3 hours were the fastest 3 hours in my life. The hand on the clock was just going so fast. I was paranoid, I was sweating as we got into the car, and so we pull up curbside. My father gets in the car and I'm thinking, this is not going to be good. So I hand him the bad news, and as I'm waiting for his response, I look at my mother and she's still kind of shaking her head a little bit, and I'm like, man, this is gonna be tough. My father turns around, he looks me in the eye and he says, "You got to do better than this. This is not who you are. You have to expect more of yourself." So when I became a parent, I wanted Avery and Justin to look in the mirror and expect something of themselves. I wanted them to look in the mirror and have love for the person that they saw. I wanted them to look in the mirror and understand that success was only going to come with hard work and dedication. And so my expectations were a little bit more elevated than my father's were, and I just think that that's just a sign of the times, a little bit different when I was raising him than my father was raising me. But expectations became so important for me because in that moment, my father showed me how to have expectations for myself, but he also showed me a little bit of empathy. He understood that I was at a new school, I didn't know very many people, and the fact of the matter is, he knew that if it went the other way, that it might have caused a little bit more damage to me moving forward than the way he chose to do it. And so for you, that's where expectations came from. I'm sorry it was a little bit more elevated than the expectations that your grandfather put on me, but I needed you to understand that you have to expect something of yourself in order to succeed and to prosper. So let me ask you a question. Was it tough to meet the expectations?
Oh, so tough.
Really?
So tough. I mean, first off, there was always a fear of failing to meet my parents' expectations. And I never wanted to let my parents down. Sometimes things just felt really difficult. Now, it also was a challenge feeling like I was the only kid in the world that had to deal with such lofty expectations. And lastly, it was tough because I needed to understand that you said what you meant and you meant what you said. When I was 10 years old, one of my favorite things to do in the world was play PlayStation. And I had a PlayStation 2 at the time, loved playing video games. Now, one of the punishments that we had if we got in trouble, PlayStation would go away. My dad would hide it in his room. And as I got older, I started figuring out where his hiding places were. So when he would be away, I'd run into his room, grab the PlayStation from under the bed, go back into my room, plug it in, start playing. And then I hear the garage door open up, and I'm like, oh, let me go put the PlayStation back where it belongs. So one day, me and my brother are playing PlayStation, and my dad says, hey, clean your room. So we're playing PlayStation all day, and the room stays dirty. Day 2 comes. We get home from school, and we go right upstairs to play PlayStation. Room is still dirty. Day 3 comes. Room is still dirty, and guess what we do? We get home from school, and we go right upstairs to play PlayStation. Now, when my dad's downstairs making dinner, he calls for me and my brother Justin to come downstairs, and he says, I want you to go grab PlayStation. So at this point, we knew what was going on. Dang, PlayStation's going away. We got in trouble. We should have cleaned the room. So we go back upstairs, and I'm grabbing the console. My brother's grabbing the games, and he's wrapping up the paddles. We go back downstairs, and then my dad takes us into the garage and out the side door. And he lifts open the garbage bin, and he says, I want y'all to throw this in the garbage. Now the face that you're making right there, that's the face that I was making. Because the first thing in my mind was like, that's not the hiding place. I know where the hiding place is. Now here's the point of the story. I had to understand the importance of expectations. When I was expected to do something, I had to get it done, and in a timely manner. And this lesson has stayed with me my entire life because now I realize very acutely that if expectations aren't met, there are consequences. And in this case, it just happened to be that the PlayStation was thrown away.
So I hope you weren't too damaged from that incident.
I've never owned another game console since.
And actually, his mom was very upset with me because she's like, did you have to throw it in the garbage can? Can we have taken it back and gotten a little bit of a refund? I had to apologize to her. In retrospect, I probably should have done that.
You think?
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. How did you overcome these challenges?
Well, I can start by saying that fear of failing to meet my parents' expectations actually became a motivator for me. You see, I developed a drive and a desire to achieve because I didn't want to let my parents down. And honestly, I don't know if I would have developed that had you not pushed me so much back then. Now, the other way I was able to overcome it is you always shared the why.
Yeah.
And I know this was a trust maker that we talked about, but it helped me a lot as I was growing up to at least understand why the rules were the way that they were and why you had such expectations on me. And at least it gave me a sense of a method to your madness. Now, lastly, I could always lean on the love that we had in our household. See, that was the thing that really helped me get through times where I felt like, man, this is just too much. These expectations are too big right now. But I always could reflect on the love that each person in our household shared for each other.
Yes.
And I knew that we all had our best interests in mind.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So at the beginning of the introduction to this course, we mentioned that my dad gave me 48 hours to decide whether or not I was going to sign one of two contracts. One was to stay in my family's home, and the other contract was to move out. Now, this portion of the talk is called conflict resolution, but for the purposes of this story, we're going to call it the contract. Now, I'm going to let my dad give his version of this story, and then I'm going to give you my truth.
Okay, so let me give you my version of the story. I think it's good if I give you a little context here. We talked about the losses in our family a little earlier in this video, and during this time in our lives, I was really suffering for the first time in my life with depression. I was suffering from anxiety, I was dealing with insomnia, and our relationship was really at a tough point in our lives. And so when Avery applied to colleges, he applied to several and he got into several of them. But one of the ones that he got into was Sacramento State, which is right here in our city. And so we had a family conversation, and it was determined that his freshman year, he could go to Sacramento State and he could live at home. It was a wonderful way for him to save up his money. He always had jobs, and so he was a hustler. He always was making sure that he put some money under his mattress. But he could stay at home, go to school, and then after his freshman year, he could go anywhere he wanted to if he wanted to transfer. He could go down to the Bay Area, he could go to the East Coast, the Midwest. It didn't matter, but we just decided that staying home the first year was important. And I also forgot to mention that he was 17 years old. And so he wasn't going to be 18 for almost a year after he graduated. And so he started feeling himself a little bit as August approached, and he was staying out longer than the rules in the house that we had. He was not communicating with his mom very much, and I understood. He was stretching his arms. He had just graduated from high school. I was there myself at one point in time. But the house had rules, and so it all culminated in one day where we just had this blow up in the kitchen, and I gave him two options, whether he was going to stay at home or whether he was going to leave. So Avery, I'll let you go ahead and tell the truth, as you say, and then we'll go from there.
So there's a couple of things that I want to address that my dad just mentioned. First and foremost, he said we had a family conversation about where I would be going to college. And in reality, that was more of a one-sided monologue from my parents to me, letting me know where I was going to be going to college. And this hurt for a couple of reasons. First, I was watching a lot of my friends from high school getting ready to move away to college. And not only was I staying at the local college, but I was remaining at home. I was still living with my parents. And so it just didn't feel like I was progressing at the same rate. And now the other reason this hurt is I got into another school a couple hours away, and my cousin got into that same school. So when we both found out and we received that acceptance letter, we thought, oh, this is going to be great. We're going to go to school together. We're going to live together. It's going to be amazing. And it didn't turn out that way. It felt like I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain. And so, admittedly, I became a little bit resentful, and I started to push boundaries a little bit. I started to break some of the rules, and then things culminated to that infamous August day where the weather wasn't the only thing that was heated. So we're gonna go to the only other person that was present for this blow up, and then we'll come back and I'll let you know what I decided.
Okay, so yeah, the contracts. That was definitely a transitional period between the two of them, to say the least. Avery was, feeling himself, acting a little bold, as most 17-year-olds tend to do. And Pops, well, I don't know, maybe he was listening to Drake or something, because he went 0 to 100 real quick on Avery. We kind of walked in and there were, boom, contracts on the table. And so this is the first time that I'm getting to see these in like 6 or so years. So this should be fun, as I get to tell y'all the main guidelines if Avery were to stay at home or if he were to leave. And so the guidelines for staying at home, and yep, these are guidelines for sure. It states you will maintain a 3.5 GPA the first semester of school. If this is not maintained, you will need to receive scholarships and or loans to attend the second semester. This requirement will remain in place as long as I financially assist you during your college education. All right, the next one, this cuts deep for millennials. It states, the data plan will be changed on your phone to limit texting and internet access. That's our bread and butter right there. And then it also states, you can continue to have usage of the cars. However, you will pay $100 quarterly for insurance. So Avery was coming out of pocket for those wheels. And it states if he were to leave, the GPA will remain the same. Paying for the phone will still be the same. However, Avery was not paying for car insurance, and so I think I'm going to let him explain the reasoning behind that. I know I was wondering when I was 15. I'm sure y'all are wondering in the crowd. What did Avery do? Did he stay at home? Did he leave? I'm going to kick it back over to them to tell you how this played out. Fellas, thanks for making me laugh a little bit. Back to y'all. Peace.
All right. So I want to address a few things. First being, my brother said that I'd have to pay the phone bill. Now understand, this was before a time where unlimited data was an option. So that was going to be a real issue. Now he also said that if I signed the contract to leave the house, I wasn't going to have to pay for car insurance. Well, here's the reason why.
I'm thinking that way.
Now, from my previous understanding, if you receive a gift, especially a birthday gift, that gift is yours to decide what to do with it. That was not the case with the car. The car was going to be taken away, regardless of who it was gifted to. So my dad mentioned that I had 48 hours. Best believe I took 47 hours and 55 minutes to make my decision. I mean, I was on the phone with my grandmother, like, Nana, I might need to move in. And of course, after asking why, she was like, well, okay, baby, if that's what you need to do, then I'm here for you. So I bet you're wondering what I decided to do. Well, I don't know if you've been to Sacramento, but it's very difficult to get around without a car. So I felt like I was a little handcuffed. Now I eventually signed the contract to stay in my family's home. I shouldn't even say this and next to him, but it ended up being one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Does that hurt?
It hurts so much to say. But hear me out. I ended up moving out almost a year to the date of when I signed the contract. And the amount of growth that I experienced in just that 1 year was tremendous. And best believe when I finally got on my own and I started to realize how much things like toilet paper, paper towels, toothpaste, all of these things, essentials that I just took for granted, man, did I have a different perspective on life at that point.
Well, I think you made the best decision for you at that point
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
At the time, at least. Listen, when Avery signed the contract that day, I asked him to go out to dinner with me the following night. I knew as the more mature one in the relationship that even though we had resolved the conflict, that we now needed to manage the conflict. I knew as a 17-year-old he was going to be a little bit resentful and disappointed that things turned out the way that they did. So we went to dinner, we had a wonderful evening together, and that night I wrote him a letter and I left it on his dresser for him to read it in the morning. And the letter essentially was a love letter from a father to his son. I explained to him that I knew he was disappointed with what had transpired, but this was just a moment in time and this too shall pass. I let him know how much I appreciated him and his mother and his brother for supporting me as I was going through these difficult, dark moments in my life. And I just wanted him to know how much I loved him and how much I appreciated him. And it ended up being one of the best decisions that we both made, because at a moment where our relationship was at its low point, that ended up being the turning point. And that's how we've gotten in front of you today.
So those are the 5 keys. We hope you thoroughly enjoyed this course and you can use some of the things that you heard and you saw. We shared our trials, our tribulations, and our triumphs with you so that they can help you on your journey. Be sure to check out the downloadable resources. There are reflection exercises, worksheets, and ebooks readily available for you. Remember, if you're willing to put in the work, if you're willing to agree to disagree, if you're willing to be reflective, things can always get better. Take care, everybody.
Bye now.
Peace.
Hey everybody, it's Pops. If you want all the latest content that we drop, be sure to subscribe. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to subscribe. And follow us on LinkedIn at Avery and Brian Baker.